So I had this question about squash vine borers, talking with a gentleman at work, and he's been having a problem with them just devastating their crops. And I had them a couple seasons ago, just essentially killed everything. The question is, how do you keep squash vine borers off your crops? So right now, I'm actually not growing any crops. I just got cucumbers, no squash, but you can have some of the same issues with the cucumber beetles as the squash vine borer. Slightly different, but some of the same issues. But what I'm going to talk about is mainly a problem with squash, but I do this with my cucumbers as well. Now, here's a question I have for you. Have squash vine borers hit you and devastated your crop? And if they have, what are some things you're doing to essentially mitigate squash vine borers? I'm going to show you a few things that I'm doing, and then what I want you to do is essentially jump in the comments and let me know what are some ways you're doing to prevent squash vine borers. Now, someone else also told me another way to prevent squash vine borers is to actually, whoa, tripped over the bag there, plant them at a different time in the season. I haven't tried that, but some people will actually start their squash around almost August. Now in Texas, that's no big deal because it's still pretty warm, but you can still have a pretty good crop. But it's supposed to be, the idea is that they're kind of done mating and making babies, and the larva has already emerged. So at this point, people start planting their squash. Another way is to plant vine borer resistant squash, and that's going to be squash that have a thicker, tougher stem, so it's harder for them to bore through. Again, I haven't done that, but I have heard some people do that. If you have had any luck planting a squash vine borer resistant variety, do me a favor, jump in the comments and tell me what's your favorite variety to grow that you have absolutely no problems with squash vine borers. So the first thing you do to stop the squash vine borers, you can stop them from laying their eggs to begin with. I've actually seen these sticky traps. They're like these little boxes that have a pheromone in a yellow color, and you hang them, and they're supposed to attract the squash vine borers to keep them from laying their eggs in the first place. So that's one way, is to actually prevent them from laying eggs. The way they usually work, during a particular season, the moths will lay eggs, the eggs will hatch, and that larva will come up through the soil and begin to enter in one part of your stem and chew its way all the way up. Now, what I prefer to do is, as soon as I plant my squash, cucumbers, anything like that, first thing I do, I immediately put them, I actually grow them in containers. I'll cover them with this fabric to keep them from laying eggs, and then I'll cover them with a thick layer of cedar or pine mulch to deter them from even getting there to begin with. Then, as you can see, it's kind of slightly white. I'll actually take some IV Organics paint, and I will actually paint the stem. Now, I've also seen people wrap it with foil, because the way the squash vine borers work, they lay the eggs hatch, and the larva will actually enter into the stem at some point down below and start to chew its way up. So I put this down to keep them from laying eggs. It's easier for me to treat the soil. I can just spray BT neem oil once or twice a week because the eggs have not penetrated into the soil yet. And then I protect the stem and wrap that up and keep them from boring in. Works pretty good. Eventually they will get in there, but so far it does a pretty good job. Now, I've just seen this recently, and this is at Growing Out the Box. He actually has almost like a greenhouse where, let me show you, he took like a raised garden bed box, built the frame and covered it with some like netting material, fine netting material, to essentially keep all the moth out of there from laying their eggs to begin with, which is a possibility. It works. You just have to handle your own pollination. For me, that wouldn't be worth it. I try to garden the lazy way, so for me, that's not really worth it. Of course, you can always treat it with neem oil and BT and nematodes. That's going to basically also cull the population of the squash vine boring larva. But the problem is, once they get inside that stem, other than cutting it out or injecting it, you kind of like a race for time. So the key is to keep them from actually laying the eggs to begin with, and keep the eggs from getting into the actual stem. So if you can do those two things, you can fight the squash vine borers. So again, I don't know everything and I'm not the end all be all, but if you do have some techniques and some tricks of the trade and hacks that work, please jump in the comments and share them and get a chain going so we can share this information with other people. Because at the end of the day, the better the one. And remember, gardening don't got to be complicated or expensive. You just got to get out and grow something. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Sometimes you fold them, sometimes you hold them. As long as you're getting out and growing something.